Hi, my name's Brian Montgomery. I work with Carlos Santana. Been fortunate enough to be with him for about 17 years now. I guess like a lot of people, I started out trying to play in a bar band, you know, at 16, 17, 18 years old, and realized rather rapidly that I wasn't going to succeed doing that. You know, working construction all day and then going and playing in a bar at night just wasn't happening for me. I had a small, very, very small, little bitty PA rig and a little console, a little Mackie, and you know, and I started doing other little bar bands and found that I really enjoyed doing it. Just even with the simplicity of what I had, I enjoyed helping out and doing it. Wasn't making any money, but you know, having a good time. So I literally decided after going and seeing several shows, I would have been in the mid 80s, that I liked the sound of, at that point in time, the Shoko PA. So I packed myself up and moved to Dallas to get a job with Shoko. And I went and knocked on their door every week, every Monday for a year until they finally gave me a job. And I stayed with them until they became no more. And at that point, I was already mixing monitors for a few of their acts and whoever they'd send me out on or whatever they had me doing. I like the monitors because for me, it's a little more rapid, and they tell you what they want. You know, I don't have to sit out there and try and mix what I think this artist wants to hear, or listen to a bunch of people in the crowd say, I can't hear the bass from over there or over here. These guys will let you know in a heartbeat, that's what I want or that ain't what I want, and that's fine. I like that. I like that pressure, and I like being able to see how loud I can get it without having issues if that's what they want to do that night. So. I moved over to the SSL about 2 years ago. The console I was previously using, I'd been using it since it reasonably first came on the market, and I'd had the same desk for over 12 years. I like the Surface. I don't have anything bad to really say about it, but it was large, and it was getting a little long in the tooth. I didn't really want to move to that same Surface just to buy a new one or have the company get a new one for me. I wanted to move into a smaller package, a smaller footprint. And when I heard about the SSL, just really the thing I was looking for in the digital realm was the ability to do more than one thing at once, you know, because it's just, yeah, you can't, it's okay, I guess, if you're out there, you know, but up here, I got to be able to grab something quick and do more than one thing. So when I heard about this, I said, yeah, I want to try that. And I'm very happy, very happy. The console's been a trooper. That was one of my concerns. I've always been someone who let a new product come out and be out for a few years before I would want to use it, just to see how it held up on the road. I jumped into this one pretty early, and we've had it everywhere from sweaty jungles in Mexico to, you know, out in deserts or wherever, you know, up in the Alps and Switzerland in the rain, and I have not had a show-stopping problem at all with this console. It starts every morning, it works like it's supposed to. It's been a trooper, and that's the best thing I can ask for, because, you know, I don't want to switch to another console in the middle of the afternoon because this one won't fire up, and that's not been an issue. So. It kind of freaked me out in the beginning because I would be used to going into certain songs or whatever, and used to pushing certain things. And the first couple of days I was mixing with it, I'd notice I'd get to that part in the song where I would normally shove something up or pull something back, and I wasn't having to. You could sit there and you could already hear it. It was still there. It was still fine, you know, it was shocking at first, is what it really was. But now I've gotten used to it. It's rather a pleasure. It's a lot less movement for me over here. It's changed a lot for me. I noticed the guys I got on ear monitors are really a lot more settled in things. There's not a lot of drastic changes. EQs are very similar between what I need for a wedge and what I can put into an ear monitor. In most cases, I do double a lot of inputs to travel between, you know, this is only for ears or this is for wedges, but the majority of the inputs I can still EQ the way I want to for a wedge mix, and it'll translate nicely into an ear mix. It's not It's not that drastic a difference. It's just nice and smooth. The gates and compressor gates are almost seamless if you set them right. The compressors are lovely. You know, you can set them just nice and light and take your edges off whatever you want to. So it's just, all in all, it's just more like an analog desk with a bunch of outboard gear that you've selected than some of the other consoles I've used. And I've gotten rid of all my outboard gear. Yeah. When I first moved, I kept a lot of my outboard compressors just out of, you know, well, I didn't know. Yeah, I didn't know. And I got rid of them within the first month. I just said, I don't need them anymore. I can use what's in the console. This band isn't, they're not really a group that sort of says, oh man, you know, they'll tell you if it sounds nice or whatever, but the biggest feedback I get is they don't ask for as much anymore. They settle in, and once we get rolling during an evening, especially the guys on ears, they're in, they're locked in, and I'm not having to make a drastic amount of changes from day to day on anything at this point. So
they say sometimes no news is good news.
That's always how I look at it. Yeah. Sonically, it's brilliant. A lot of space in the mix without having to really push it or feel like you're mixing a lot. You just sort of set it and you can hear a lot more definition to things. The preamps, obviously being SSL, are phenomenal sounding, nice and warm. Closer to an analog sounding preamp than I've ever used on a digital console. Yeah, I mean, there's a few things. Like I said, you know, that all-pass filter system is brilliant. It absolutely is a wonderful idea, being able to throw something so narrow out of phase and, you know, perfectly select what you want. I use it for multiple different things, either dual kick drum mics where they're not quite out of phase completely, snare tops and bottoms, but I like to use it especially for feedback issues. Mm-hmm. So if I have a problemary frequency and I don't want to chop it out of an EQ, I can first attempt to throw that frequency out of phase, and a lot of times it works. Sometimes it doesn't, but a lot of times it definitely helps. It's nice to have a console where I can do two things at once again, and with the ability for it not to flip the whole surface and just to flip tile areas has been really, really helpful, so that I can still keep my hands on what I'm doing for Carlos and change anything I want for anybody else, either in the tile area or in your focus channel area. As I got more comfortable with it, using the stem system that you guys have created for this, I use that as opposed to using a traditional aux send. So I've almost entirely switched all of my what would have been aux sends to stems. I don't use the matrix section anymore, which I used to use a lot on other consoles, and I just feed stems to auxes. So I use an aux system more like a matrix system now, which I find to be quicker, and I still have the control of additional EQ or anything like that I might need. I never liked the grid system of patching to set up. It was just really convoluted for me, and a lot of times you couldn't label the grid systems that a lot of the digital consoles have. So then you got to sit there and go, okay, well, what cage number, where was that, what was this? And with this, where I can sit there and absolutely label my input and outputs, and then it's just as simple as following the flow and going, well, I want that one there, I want that one there. And then if you don't like it, you can move it and it takes everything with it without having to repatch. And that's just ease of operation. It's just amazing. Advantage-wise, I love the size, compactness of it compared to what I was using. It's much easier to fit into a lot of these arenas and venues with the fire lanes and small areas for us to set up. Being a rather large band, having everything easily accessible has been a very big feature for me with this console. For me, I try to keep, like a lot of things, I guess, my primary is on my top layer. I use all 5 layers. I don't use a lot of the sub layers in those. But so for me, to keep it more like I was used to set up, I keep my master section on my tile 1. My vocals are up here with my percussion area up here, because that's something I have to access quite a bit. And then drums, keys right here on my left hand. So everything's pretty quick and accessible. Yeah, pretty much. I tried to set up like I said, as close to an analog desk as possible is really what I was looking for. So most of my musicians are pre-fade for the ear monitor stuff. Carlos being all wedges, he's post-fade, so I can use VCAs and submix systems to move things around for him rapidly without having to push and shove, 80 some odd inputs. A lot of stereo sends. Obviously, all the guys in ears are stereo, and actually, most of Carlos's wedges across the front are stereo pairs. Work their way across, so he can get his space he wants to hear, if he, so he can hear the Leslie moving and that kind of stuff. And I can kind of place things a little more oriented to the way they are on the stage instead of just having a bunch of mono wedges blaring out at him. So when he travels across the stage, I can dictate the same movement on the front line as he is along the upstage line. So. Everybody who's wearing ears nowadays, it's a front of house mix for everybody, kind of thing. But some of them are less intricate than others. But it's, in all, yeah, everybody wants to hear everything that's going on. I haven't got really anybody who's just old school, just I want kick, snare, hat, There's so much going on, the dynamics with these guys, that everybody has to hear everything's going on, I love this console. I would highly recommend this to anyone out here.